Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this month's master class. Similar to last month, we're going to follow the format. Greg is going to introduce a little bit to what's been going on in the web, and then we're going to dive into labor tracking, labor control with Andrew, and then talk about kind of how to do that in the the desktop client as well as in the web, and a little bit of a BI piece at the end. So without further ado, go ahead, take it away, Greg.
All right, so in the last master class, we did a quick demo of how our receiving on the web is working, just kind of diving into our inventory module that we're starting to bring over to the web. So we'll touch into that. There's been one small addition there. So here we are in the inventory module. You'll see there's now a parts section. We're going to get into that in a moment, but last month we touched on purchase orders and receiving against those. So I'm going to click into a purchase order here. Again, we can receive all. We can make manual receipts for just a portion. We have some context for whether that line has been received in full. The main change that has happened since last demo is we've now got integration into our form control. So when saving this receipt, we can now display a prompt of various documents that would normally be printed within the desktop application from the web. So we can email a receipt traveler, print a receipt traveler, do custom label printing, things like that. So just adding this hook for form options here. So now let's take a quick sneak peek at inventory inquiry. So again, this is not yet in production. Receiving is in production and available now. But we're starting on our inventory inquiry. So there will be a parts card that you can click on. That will display a data table with parts. You can search, sort. We'll be adding filtering here. I don't think filtering's been wired up just yet. But you get kind of a high-level view of your parts and various key indicators on those. And then as we drill into an item, it will bring up a view of that part in detail. You can open multiple parts concurrently if you want to. So we'll open another part. You can have them open in tabs. But then looking at a given part, there's sort of a summary tab here. That's the equivalent of the top section of the imv.q screen. And then we'll have sections that drill into the various details that you can view from that desktop app. Some of this, again, is a work in progress here. But that's the general interface. And then in the future, we will also start bringing in part.e functionality here, where you can view and edit all of the details of that part on the web in the inventory module. So that's just a quick demo there. And
a little bit of a sneak peek.
Yeah. So this again is not in production yet. Should be coming pretty shortly. Probably not in the next release, but within the next month or so, I think we'll have inventory inquiry in production.
Okay, great. All right, Andrew, you ready to roll? But before we jump in there, also just as always, please, anybody, I think we should be able to. We'll monitor the chat. If anybody has any questions as we go, can ask anytime. Okay.
All right. So this month we're talking about different ways to capture labor in Rover. I'm gonna hit kind of the high points, some of the basics before we pass off to Bill, and he can highlight what we have available on the web, and maybe he might even show off some more advanced things. But we'll find out. But for the basics, right? So capturing labor, anyone here who's manufacturing items already probably uses one of these methods, right? So there's multiple methods here. In order to get started, you have to have your employees set up, and that's in emp.e. I'm gonna not go super deep into this one. I believe, yeah. So for today, I'm gonna use employee number 202, a maintenance tech number 1. There's various little options here, but in order to track labor against a work order, we need to know, who's doing the work, right? So set up your employees, emp.e, and then we can get to the good stuff, which is labor. So The most simple form of labor entry in Rover is going to be LABOR.E, and that's going to be entering in individual labor transactions. So in the screen, you got to start with your employee ID. Again, I'm maintenance tech 1 for today. It's going to preload a bunch of stuff for you. So like the date, we're working on today, you can change it. Function, whether you're doing a work order, then you're going to need to enter in that work order. For today, I have a test work order here. Let me just pull up my traveler so we can all see. It's a pretty simple work order. Work order 991. There's 3 steps in the routing that we're doing: welding, grinding, and chrome plating. Nothing too crazy here. Bring that off. So if I were to enter some time against this work order, I'm a shop floor employee, maybe I'm working on this first step, that's welding. I got my traveler with me, so I know my work order is 991. The operation would be 1. That was that first line in the traveler. So I'm just going to pre-fill what that work center is. And then you can either enter your hours spent or a start time and end time. It's up to you. So let's say I put an hour on that, right? It's converted. But let's say I want to enter a time. I started at 8. I ended at, 9:30, right? So now it calculated how many hours I entered. Like I said, LABOR.E is the simplest version of labor entry. You're doing one single operation at a time. I don't necessarily see a ton of use of LABOR.E, but its big brother, which is LABOR.E2, I see a lot more usage of. So bring this in over here. So we've kind of got the same thing. If we look at LABOR.E2, this is the same thing as LABOR.E, but you're entering in multiple, right? One way I've heard this described, which I like, is LABOR.E2 is LABOR.E turned on its side. So you've got these same functions or same fields here, just going horizontally instead of vertically. And that allows you to enter in multiple. I see, like I said, I see this a lot more. So let's see, 991, operation 1, it loads out that work center for me, and I can do the same thing. I can either enter a start time, end time, or just a regular hours. It's up to you. What this does allow, let me just add something here. Okay. Day work order. Let me see if I have another example quickly. All right, so I did that from 9 to noon. So now I did 3 hours, and as you can kind of see, we're almost entering in a time card at this point. An example I like to use for people who use LABOR.E2 are maybe your employees, your shop floor employees, they have just a time card, physical piece of paper that they mark down how many hours they've been on each different process for that day. And then at the end of the day, either they go to a Rover screen, pull up LABOR.E2, they enter in their number, or scan. If you have a barcode scanner, if you've got a badge, you can scan that in, and then they're entering in their time for the day. Alternatively, I've seen some people, everyone, all the shop floor employees, they hand in their physical time cards they've been keeping track of throughout the day or the week. They hand it to their manager at the end of the day or the end of the week, and the manager is responsible for entering the stuff in and being that kind of double check for that second set of eyes on their time to just make sure everything's okay. That's kind of the best version of LABOR.E2 is that kind of a workflow. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, no, just gonna jump into on the function codes. We can jump over to labor.control here in a minute too, just to kind of share that. The most common use, I think, Andrew, you're defaulting to it too, is to log these times to specific work orders. But we do have the ability to define function codes and track various activities. Here we have some predefined ones in the system. We'll show you where those are defined. But you do have the ability to do entries against that as well. So,
and here we go. If you just want to,
keep going. Go ahead and help us walk through this really quick. So, here we can define the shift start and end times in general, break times, and then if we look at the bottom right there, this is where we have labor functions. So most people are probably going to use WO or work order for the vast majority of their logging, but you can define the account. You can also define whether you want those labor entries to calculate fixed overhead and variable overhead. You see those check boxes to the right. And then when somebody makes a labor entry, whether it's through LABOR.E, LABOR.E2, these overheads will be automatically calculated based on that what's coded in the work center. So just wanted to highlight that before we kind of move past LABOR.E2. Yep.
The other thing to know, I don't think you mentioned rate, but you also down here at the bottom of LABOR.E or all the way on the right on LABOR.E2, you've got the rate type. So maybe it's just regular, or if they're overtime, right? You've got your multipliers, double time, etc. So you have those options as well. And actually, these time clock rules are going to be what we talk about next. But that's LABOR.E, LABOR.E2. I like to think of it as your timesheets, right? That's kind of at least how it makes sense in my head. Hopefully it makes sense in at least one other person's head too. So the other main methodology of capturing labor here is not LABOR.E or LABOR.E2. Just going to not save anything. I'm in Bill's demo account, so I guess if I saved it, it'd be his problem later.
Don't feel bad. Yeah.
So the other option or methodology here is this emp time. And there are kind of two things you got to think about here. We've got clock in and clock out, and you've got a emptime.e is kind of a 2-in-1. If you want them split off into separate functions, you've got E1 and E2. And this is where an employee will clock in for the day or out for the day, right? That's kind of how I like to describe them, is in and out of the day. And then these start jobs and end jobs, E3 and E4, that is them kind of clocking in a sense, to a job on a work order, right? So if I am, let me go emptime.e, and I'm user 202, so it brings up my name, so I know I'm entering the right person. This is a fantastic use case for scan badges, right? So if you've got a little barcode scanner attached to your computer and your employees have, the word escaped me, the name badges, so they can just scan in. That will pre-fill here, and then you save, right? So he's clocked in. If I come back in here, it'll tell me, hey, employee 202, maintenance tech 1, clocked in on this date. The actual time was 10:15, yeah, because we're in Pacific time, right? So it's telling me that I am clocked in. I can see that. Like I said, I would just quickly show emptime E1 and E2. So there's your clock in, clock out. These do the same thing that emptime.e does. It's just they're broken out and only allows you to log in this way. So if I try and do 202, it's going to say, hey, sorry, buddy, you're already clocked in. Oh, cool. Okay. I can go about my day. Now, if I want to clock out, okay. It let me. I thought I was going to complain because there should be some of these settings here kind of allow some grace time for logging in, logging out, whether you can log in early or late, right? That's what all of these are. Down here is defining that. Let's see, I'm going to clock back in. Yeah, see, last 2 minutes. So that's fine. I know another employee I can pretend to be for today. So clocking in there. Save that. So now I'm clocked into the system for the day, right? We're good. Now, if I'm going to start working on a job, I'm going to use emptime E3, which clocked in as employee 203. And my start time is in 14 minutes. That's not going to work. Let's just quickly fix that. Or This will work too.
Yeah, if you want to, you could jump over to demo.new too if it's convenient, Andrew. But yeah.
I just made a new employee for me.
Okay.
That was quick.
All right.
All right. So let's see. Function.
WO. Yep.
That's right. My memory. Forgive me. So now this is kind of the same thing that I was doing with LABOR.E, where I was saying for this work order, 991, operation 1, which is that welding step I showed in the Traveler, I want to clock in. So when I click save, now the system just timestamped as quick math 10:18 Pacific time. That's when I'm starting that job. So let's say I'm clocked in, I'm starting my welding. A few hours later, I go back, I'm done. I would use mtime E4 and kind of enter in the same stuff. So at this point, system knows, hey, I'm welding, excuse me. So it knows this is what I've been working on, and it'll pre-fill everything for you so you can then end the job or log out of the job, clock out of the job, however you want to think about it. I don't know if enough time has passed. Oh, okay, it let me. So now we've got, rather than entering it in after the fact with LABOR-E and E2, right, as that time card approach, I'm capturing these actuals as they happen. So I logged into this welding job, I logged out of this welding job, and at that point, we already know that time is that labor is accounted for and has been captured, right? So it's a lot more accurate since you're not entering it after the fact and relying on, somebody's notes. The employees have to actually clock into the job they're going to do and clock out of the job as they finish it. Bill, anything to add? Because I think that's going to be about it for me in the basics here.
Okay. No, I can transition here. So again, any questions? But now we're going to talk about. So Andrew's covered the how to do the entry part of it, but it's kind of like, okay, what do I start to do with the data? How do I use it? So I'm going to go ahead and share here and just talk a little bit about these labor entries. Where do they go? You have the option. I'm going to go ahead and go into our wo.control file. So in the control file, we can determine whether or not we want to backflush labor or if we want to put actual uncheck it, and that's if we want to actually put actual labor into the work order cost. Here you can also kind of default a backflush labor function. So this is where, in this case, we're defaulting to WO because most of our work here is going to be, our time's going to be logged against work orders. So I've got a few entries here already done just to show you what it looks like. So this is in an existing work order. We can uncheck backflush labor here if we want. These labor transactions are going to be recorded, and you can see them from the work order here and just see how much, total hours have been logged against that work order, by who, etc. And then that data gets populated in terms of your actual costs. And if you do go into backflushing, it's going to be using the standard, but you'll always, you'll be able to see the labor entries here and see your actuals here. So just worth mentioning, this is a very nice kind of flexible way to just get in and kind of see what labor has been logged against a specific work order and by whom. So worth mentioning there. We're going to talk about next what it looks like. So if you're doing a lot of these transactions, I've got 100 employees, 150 employees that I want to start tracking their time. The more likely scenario is you're using a scanner or something like that. So we're going to show you what the the equivalent start job, end job looks like in the Rover web client. Oh, backflush. Zeke's got a question in the chat. So backflush is basically expensing. It's a kind of a synonym for expensing. So it means that we're going to expense labor, based on the standard, or we're going to, use the actual. So in this case, if we're backflushing labor, it means we're just going to basically expense the labor at the end of the work order according to the standard, okay, or the actual rather. So in the web client here, start job looks very similar. This could be used on any kind of web-enabled mobile device, tablet with a Bluetooth scanner. So here I'm gonna pick on another employee here from the demo account, and we're just gonna go ahead and log another entry against that work order 1008 here. So this, if we've got a traveler out on the floor or something, we've got the barcodes already here for the work order number for the operations. So what you're basically doing is just entering this data. As Andrew mentioned too, you could have the employee barcoded, something like that, and just quickly log this data. We're going to start the job from here, and then basically when it's time to finish a job, we have a couple options. So we'll start about kind of the base case here is, let's just say we're doing a simple LABOR.E type entry here. We're going to log out of this job. All the data is going to come in and populate with what job I'm already logged into. So I really can just load my employee ID or scan it, and I'm just going to click one button here to end the job. We do have a setting here as well to include a shop transaction with the logout, because if let's say somebody's logging into a work order and they finished a certain number of pieces of that work order, then we can basically click on this toggle here. It's going to show me how many pieces I have open at the operation that I'm logging out of, and I can choose to move. Let's say in this case I'm going to I built 12 of these units here. So then going back into the work order, we need to type the command right. So bring it over, bring it up. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and get back into that work order, and we're gonna look for. We've got the new labor entry here, just a quick 0.02, and then we can also see the shop transaction that we just did against it in the scan. Okay. So this is kind of using the web, or leveraging the web client is the way to sort of handle high volume. We've also, there's a barcode scanner in the desktop client that's been used historically too. It's the same principle, but this just gives you the ability to utilize sort of any mobile device to do these entries. Okay, gotcha. Zeke's got it looks like Zeke. Okay. Let us know, Zeke, if you got any other questions or follow-ups. We'll have some time at the end here too. So before I go into the BI side, so I think we've talked about all the ways you can enter it, the ways you can view it. There's a lot of flexibility built into Rover there. Once you have the data, I personally like the idea of utilizing this in conjunction with Rover BI to start to kind of visualize and report on the data. So this is just a really brief kind of example dashboard done with a Rover labor file that, using Rover BI to just kind of generate some metrics. You can log, pieces that are produced. You can log hours by employee, by month, compare them versus capacity, and also just, there are some great standard reports as well in Rover, but you can also just kind of replicate these things here and sort of filter. Let's say we're a supervisor or something and we're managing a group of people. We want to just kind of filter by date here. We want to filter by work center, and we're going to grab the look at the actual labor entries here. You'll notice you have all the data from the labor file getting pulled in. You can also add some calculated fields, etc. So I think kind of we've kind of covered like, the whole sort of process from different entry types as well as to, what you can do visualizing this data here. But essentially, I guess, yeah, open it at this point for any questions. Andrew, do you have if you have anything to add to, or, at this point, feel free.
Yeah, the one thing I should have set you up better for the end job on Rover Scan. Right now on the desktop, if you're doing either labor.e to or using the emp time functions to go in and out of jobs, that and the shop transactions where we're actually moving material to the different operations is totally separate, right? So desktop, we don't have a way to kind of combine those. If you want to end that job and move your material, you've got to emp time E4 and then do a st.e movement, right? But on the web, that one little checkbox that Bill showed, it's combining both of those together to save you time, which is awesome, right? Because now you can log out of your job and you can say, yes, I'm done, move this material to the next step. I'm done with it. And you're combining a couple steps into one. Yeah, go ahead, Bill. I see you with that tab.
Yeah. No, just while you're going, I was thinking just to show everybody that the wo.control in the scan tab is where you can sort of toggle whether you want to be able to end a job within that, within the end job as well. This is where you can combine it to either just, move to the next operation or even move to a specific operation if you want to specify it. So just want to throw that in there, Andrew. So, yeah, I think that's, yeah. Anything else on your end, Andrew, before we close? Anybody have any questions about this?
That's it for me.
Okay. All right. Well, please, as always, reach out to us if you are, interested in kind of taking your labor tracking, reporting to the next level, whether it's, you want to log time to work orders or you want to track functions. Yeah. Also, before we jump, if there's any ideas on what you'd like us to cover next month, please share. And I think we'll close there. Andrew, thanks. Greg, thanks. And thanks, everybody for joining us.